Hello YouTube. Apologies for not getting out last week and uploading a video. I've been getting over an inner ear infection and some other things like a throat infection as well, which is linked to the same thing. But I'm out today to try and find some examples of trees and signs on trees of to try and show you what to avoid when you're trying to find a location for your camp. Sort of dead trees mostly, or dying trees or things like that. So I'll start off with what I found just over here. Flip this round. And the obvious signs are, when you're out and about, is on the floor. You'll see, well, you might see dead branches or trees that have completely fallen over. There's one just here, which is quite a fairly recent split, believe it or not, because it's quite clean on the inside there. When it's old, it gets all dirty and horrible, but it's been down long enough for most of the ivy on it to have died off. So there's a slight green tint to some of it, but most of it's died off. And that one has come off of this tree here, which is all covered in ivy. Get around this other side. That one here, and it's come off of this limb just here. That one, rather than that one, but that one is leaning right over at the top as well. So the chances are that one's going to go before long as well. The signs of that sort of thing happening can be exposed roots, such as this down the side, these roots obviously, and often the inside the hollows, if there's anything in here, there'll be hollows for a start, which is a bad sign, and it's sort of brittle and crumbly inside there, so that's not a good sign. And there's another one over that way, which has also dropped, and that section there, it's been down a little while, this one, but that section there came off of this side here. And once a tree's got to that stage, the rest of it is probably going to die before too long. And looking up, there is some tiny bits of green shoot coming out, so it's not completely dead. The one on the left is, because it's covered in fungi on the King Alfred cakes, as you can see. That means that one's pretty much dead now, because fungi prefer dead trees, and the other side, it hasn't got any on it at all. So that side's still alive at the moment, but where it's split, the left-hand side is obviously gone completely. I'll try and find some more examples of there's another dead bit, and you can see inside where it started going all black and horrible. Is that focusing? And it's all decaying in there, which isn't good. And that's quite a small one, and that's still got young shoots on it, or fresh leaves as well. So at the moment that's all right, but it could go any moment, even though it's still got living foliage on it. I'll try and find some more signs to show you that are a bit different. Also, with this sort of trees like this that have fallen over, and this is quite a long one, or quite a large one, that's fallen over because it's dead, obviously. and people have put little rope swing under there and started building a shelter, but that's probably not a good idea, because the main supporting area of it is there, and so all the way between that and where it's just about touching the trees over there, that little branch, is all over empty space, and eventually this branch will break with the pressure. It will get to a stage where it's rotten enough to just snap away completely, and of course all that side will just drop down, so you don't really want to be underneath there when that happens. So keep things like that in mind as well. If it's a freshly fallen tree like that, you'd probably be alright under this end, but it would be able to shelter under that side. But if it's been down for a long time and it's completely rotten, then it's not worth the risk. Here's another good example. Up there are two quite large broken branches or limbs that have come off. See if I can get this. See, that one's just hanging down there, and that one's hanging down there. There's probably a few more smaller broken ones up there, but when stuff's hung up like that, you obviously don't want to be underneath it camping, because in high winds or just sometimes randomly on its own without wind, it'll drop those parts down when they loosen off, and once they've fallen from right up there, that's going to hurt when it hits you on the head or leg or wherever it hits. So that's hung up branches or hung up limbs. You can get complete trees that are hung up which have fallen over and resting against other trees, which are also bad, so you want to avoid those. That one looks like it's hung up as well. That one going through there. Sorry about the sun in the way there. So the main things to look out for with trees is decay. The obvious one is foliage. If it's in the summer and every other tree has got foliage on it and there's one that hasn't, or any that haven't, those ones are probably going to be dead, because they're not supplying the life sap to the branches to grow the foliage. Decay is the other one, as I said. Exposed roots on the side of a tree is normally a good sign as well, that the tree is going to fall over soon. Anything like this sort of idea really is generally where it's been wobbling in the ground and the roots are sort of weakened, so it pulls some of the roots out of the ground, and then it might settle there again and look like that. So that we've got decay and exposed roots in this one, and it's hard to tell with some trees how much foliage they've got on, because most of these are covered in ivy anyway, so, and other creeping, crawling plants. I think that was not long before that one goes over. Again, more signs of decay over in this one. There. This is also another bad sign, obviously. Zooming in then. Sorry about that. This one's obviously all rotten in here. Let's see if we can get a closer sign. See, this one is completely rotten in here. So that's going to fall at some point, and it's big enough to, that's about 10 or 12 inches in diameter. That's big enough to do some damage when it comes over, even if it's a big enough or heavy enough branch to sort of heavily bruise, I suppose. Then it's going to ruin your day, because it's going to make things awkward, especially if it's your leg or your foot or your arm that you use for doing your other activities or walking about. Yes, so that's another sign of decay, the rot. And also, but before the rot sets in, usually you'll get bark shedding off the outside of a tree as well, or in many cases, maybe not usually, but quite a lot of cases. We've got the signs of decay, well, the lack of foliage, the signs of decay, the exposed roots, and the bark, the missing bark where it's fallen off the tree, which I suppose technically is a sign of decay rather than anything else. Leaning trees as well, if they're abnormal in the way that they lean, that can be a sign. So that one looks a bit like it's leaning slightly, but it sort of straightens up and starts growing towards the sun again, whereas that one over there is leaning straight over, and then it curls even more at the top to lean over, so that could be a danger in the future. It looks pretty okay at the moment. Yeah, the roots aren't exposed on the base of that one yet, so that one's not too bad. Also cracks in the tree, vertical running cracks, sort of cracks that would run down this way. There's no cracks on this one, but big cracks that run that way are a good sign that it's losing its structural rigidity, so to speak, and it could split in half or drop limbs from further up because it's dead inside. And I think that's probably about it that I can think of. I'll just run through the list again. There's the lack of foliage, the decay, the exposed roots, and then we've got the lack of bark on the outside. And then we've got to look out for cracks, hung up trees and hung up branches, fallen trees that look sort of fairly solid but might not be. You have to look at what's supporting them and if there's a danger of that breaking as well. Or rolling off. Sometimes a tree will break and it'll rest on its own sort of stump, the stump that's left. So imagine if a large tree broke off and the top part fell over right about there and rested on top of the trunk there. It might seem solid, but a bit of movement that way or even that way would make that fall off and drop down, so you don't want to build a shelter underneath that either, unless you're 100% confident that it is solid. But generally you can never tell. They might seem solid at first, but eventually they do go. I was going to make a video of some simple tarp setups, but I thought before I do that video I'll go into detail, or a little bit of detail, explaining what you should look out in the area you're going to place your tarp, because the last thing you want is to set up a tarp under a dangerous tree. That one's leaning quite a lot as well over there, because trees are very heavy things. You're probably fully aware of that. Beech trees are a tricky one as well, because many beech trees, the reason why they're called widow makers, and the reason why they drop their limbs suddenly without you necessarily knowing about it, is because the rot or the decay starts, and the disease just starts inside it, and there's not usually any signs from the outside that it's happening. The structural core of the tree itself will start to die, and quite often it will still have foliage on the branches when it drops them as well, in many cases, because there's enough of the sap running around the circumference of the tree to keep those alive. But of course, because the branches are so heavy, when enough of the core rots away or dies away and becomes brittle, the wind can just knock it and break it straight off. So very dangerous things. So if you it's worth knowing what beech trees look like, or the signs of beech trees, which is often the leaves that are laying around the beech tree. Beech leaves will stay there for a long time because they start to become toxic when they die. So other small insects don't eat them, so they tend to stay on the floor for a long time. That's another precarious looking tree there. So I'd be worried about camping under this one because it's got exposed roots. It's got signs of lots of exposed roots here. It's got the signs of decay in the holes there. It's already had one branch fall off. It's it's lost a few pieces of bark where it's been banging against other trees in its past, and it's leaning right over, so that's generally not a good looking tree to sort of camp underneath. Those are the parts of it that laying down there, I think. Not sure what's been going on over here. So yeah, try and stay safe in the woods. I mean, by all means, get down to the woods and enjoy the woods, but stay safe while you're there. Keep an eye out on the floor and up in the trees for any signs of death, or dead trees, or dead fall, or hung up wind-blown stuff and things like that. Just to try and minimise the chances of anything falling on you. You can never guarantee that a healthy branch isn't going to fall. It does happen occasionally, and a dead tree might not fall over for years. You never know. As I say, there's no guarantee. So just stay safe, okay? And I'll speak to you in the next video with a few tarp setups, hopefully. Okay, thanks for watching.